My name is Willow, and I'm 36 years old. Right now, it's past midnight, and I'm sitting in my small apartment holding my sleeping 2-year-old daughter, Emma. 6 months ago, I made the hardest decision of my life. I left my marriage with nothing but a diaper bag, some baby formula, and Emma's favorite stuffed elephant. That night, my heart was completely broken, but I knew staying would break something far more precious, my daughter's future. The weight of that choice still sits heavy on my chest, but as I watch Emma sleep peacefully, I know it was right. Before I share what happened that night and how I found the strength to choose freedom over fear, I'd love to know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt trapped or questioned whether you deserve better, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories of courage and healing. Your support means everything to mothers like me who are rebuilding their lives. Now let me take you back to where this journey began, when I thought I had found my fairy tale, but discovered I was living in a nightmare. 5 years ago, I met Travis at my college friend's wedding in downtown Charleston. He was 33, then a successful financial advisor with charm that could light up any room. I was 29, teaching elementary school, and completely captivated by his attention. Travis swept me off my feet with weekend getaways, surprise flowers at work, and the way he seemed to know exactly what I wanted before I even said it. Looking back now, I realized that wasn't intuition, it was control, disguised as care. Our whirlwind romance moved fast, maybe too fast. After 8 months of dating, Travis proposed at the same venue where we met. The wedding was everything I had dreamed of: beautiful flowers, elegant reception, and a groom who promised to love and protect me forever. During our first year of marriage, I was blissfully unaware of the cage being built around me, one golden bar at a time. The first red flag came when Travis suggested I quit my teaching job. He framed it as romantic, saying he wanted to take care of me, that I deserved to be pampered. When I hesitated mentioning how much I loved my students, he pointed out how stressed I seemed after long days at school. He was so convincing, so caring in his delivery, that I actually felt guilty for wanting to keep working. Against my better judgment, I resigned at the end of that school year. Without my job, I became financially dependent on Travis overnight. He gave me an allowance for groceries and personal items, always presented as generosity rather than control. He started choosing my outfits for social events, claiming he had better taste and wanted me to look perfect for his colleagues. When I received texts from old friends he'd read over my shoulder, making comments about how they were probably jealous of our happiness. Gradually, those friendships faded, as Travis always seemed to have better plans for us on nights I was supposed to see them. The jealousy started small, but grew more intense. Travis would accuse me of flirting with the grocery store clerk if I smiled while saying thank you. He installed tracking apps on my phone, explaining it was for my safety when I drove alone. He monitored my social media, commenting on every post and questioning why I liked certain photos. I began walking on eggshells, constantly analyzing my behavior to avoid triggering his suspicion or anger. When I became pregnant with Emma, I thought having a baby would soften Travis and bring us closer together. Instead, the pregnancy became another tool for his control. I had complications that required bed rest, making me even more dependent on him. He checked on me every hour when he was home, timing how long I was in the bathroom, questioning what I had eaten or watched on television. He criticized my pregnancy weight gain, bought me books about being the perfect mother, and made it clear that any problems with the baby would be my fault. After Emma was born, the verbal abuse escalated. Travis complained constantly about her crying, especially during the night. He blamed my incompetence as a mother for her fussiness, even though she was a normal, healthy baby. Sleep deprivation made me vulnerable and confused. I started believing maybe I really was doing something wrong, maybe I wasn't cut out for motherhood like I had always imagined. Travis began throwing objects when he was frustrated. Usually small things like remote controls or magazines, always just missing me but making his point clear. He threatened to take Emma away if I ever thought about leaving, reminding me that I had no job, no money, and no proof of his abuse. To everyone outside our home, we looked like the perfect family. Travis was charming at social gatherings, bringing me flowers, bragging about what a wonderful mother I was. I learned to cover bruises with makeup and make excuses for his controlling behavior, telling myself this was just the stress of new parenthood. The moment everything changed happened on a Tuesday afternoon when Emma was 18 months old. She had just learned to walk and was still unsteady on her little feet. Travis was working from home that day, spread out at the dining room table with important client papers everywhere. I was in the kitchen making Emma's lunch when I heard her tiny footsteps pattering toward the dining room. Before I could intervene, Emma reached for her sippy cup on the edge of the table and accidentally knocked it over. Apple juice splashed across Travis's documents, soaking through several pages of what looked like contracts or financial reports. The explosion of rage that followed was unlike anything I had ever witnessed. Travis screamed at our toddler with such fury that Emma immediately burst into terrified tears, her little body shaking with sobs. Without thinking, I rushed to pick up Emma instinctively, putting myself between her and her father's anger. That protective instinct cost me dearly. Travis shoved me so hard that I stumbled backward and hit my head on the sharp corner of our coffee table. As I sat on the floor dazed and holding my crying daughter, blood trickling from the cut on my head, I had a moment of absolute clarity. Emma was witnessing this toxicity, learning that love looked like fear and violence. That night, while Travis was at the gym, I sat at my computer and began researching domestic violence for the first time. Every article I read described patterns that matched my life perfectly. The isolation from friends and family, the financial control, the escalating verbal and physical abuse, the threats about taking the children. I wasn't crazy or incompetent. I was being systematically abused, and my daughter was growing up thinking this was normal. Over the following weeks, I noticed Emma starting to flinch whenever Travis raised his voice, even when he wasn't angry at her. She would run to me and cling to my legs whenever he entered a room unexpectedly. My heart broke realizing that my baby girl was already learning to be afraid in her own home. I began watching her play, seeing how she made her dolls yell at each other, and I knew I had to protect her from learning that this was what relationships looked like. My first attempt to reach out for help was a disaster. I called my sister Kate in Oregon while Travis was at work, desperately trying to explain what was happening in my marriage. But Travis had installed software on our home phone that recorded conversations. Something I discovered when he played back portions of my call that evening. He destroyed my cell phone in his rage, accusing me of planning to betray him and turn people against him. As punishment for my disloyalty, Travis locked me in our bedroom for an entire day with no food or water. I could hear Emma crying outside the door, confused about why Mommy wouldn't come out to play with her. That day, listening to my daughter's confusion and distress, I realized that Travis wasn't just hurting me anymore. He was using Emma as a weapon, and she was becoming collateral damage in his need to control me. I started planning my escape in secret, using the computer at the public library when I took Emma to story time. I researched domestic violence shelters, memorized phone numbers since I couldn't write anything down, and began hiding small amounts of cash from the grocery money Travis gave me. Every week, I would claim that bread or milk cost $1 more than it actually did, slowly building a tiny emergency fund. The breaking point came when Travis announced he was planning to take Emma away for a daddy-daughter weekend. The way he said it, watching my face for my reaction, made it clear this wasn't really about bonding with our daughter. This was a test of my obedience and a preview of his ultimate threat. I realized that if I didn't act soon, he might take Emma away permanently, and I would lose any chance of protecting her from the cycle of abuse I had allowed to continue for far too long. The opportunity I had been waiting for finally came on a Thursday evening in late October. Travis had an important client dinner that would keep him out until very late, possibly past midnight. Our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, had offered to babysit Emma if I ever needed a break, not knowing that I never went anywhere without Travis's permission. That evening, as I watched him adjust his tie and remind me to have Emma in bed by 8 o'clock, I knew this was my only chance. After Travis left, I waited 30 minutes to make sure he wasn't coming back for something he forgot. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely function, but I forced myself to stay calm for Emma's sake. I packed our diaper bag with essentials just enough to last a few days. Diapers, baby formula. Emma's medicine for her ear infections. One change of clothes for each of us, and her beloved stuffed elephant that helped her sleep. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a simple note that read, "I can't do this anymore." The hardest part was getting Emma into her car seat without her asking too many questions. She was confused about why we were leaving after dinner, why Mommy seemed scared, why we were taking Mr. Elephant on a car ride in the dark. When she started crying as we backed out of our driveway, I nearly panicked, terrified that the neighbors would hear and somehow alert Travis. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out, but I kept driving toward the address I had memorized from the domestic violence shelter website. The drive across town felt like it took hours, though it was probably only 20 minutes. At every red light, I ducked down in my seat, irrationally afraid that Travis would somehow spot us, even though he was supposed to be at his dinner meeting. When I saw the headlights of a car similar to his in my rearview mirror, I took 3 random turns just to make sure we weren't being followed. Emma fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted from crying, still clutching her stuffed elephant. Finding the shelter was harder than I expected. The address led me to an unmarked building with a small, discreet sign. I had to press a buzzer and explain through an intercom that I needed help before they would unlock the door. The intake process was overwhelming and surreal. A kind woman named Rosa took photos of the bruises on my arms and the cut on my head that was still healing. She helped me file a police report, something I had never imagined myself doing, while Emma slept curled up in a plastic chair beside us. Our room was small but clean, with 2 beds and a shared bathroom down the hall. Emma was confused and kept asking for Daddy, not understanding why we weren't going home to our house. I tried to explain that we were having a sleepover adventure, but she could sense my anxiety and stayed close to me all evening. For the first time in years, there were no sounds of Travis's footsteps overhead. No tension about whether he was in a good mood or bad mood. No walking on eggshells. That first night, I couldn't sleep at all. Every sound in the hallway made me jump, expecting Travis to somehow find us and drag us back home. But Emma slept more peacefully than she had in months, not waking up once during the night. As I watched her small face relaxed in sleep, I felt a mix of terror and relief that was completely overwhelming. We were safe at least for tonight, but I had no idea what tomorrow would bring or whether I had the strength for the battle ahead. At 6 o'clock the next morning, my old cell phone started buzzing with calls from Travis. Rosa had warned me this would happen and helped me develop a safety plan for handling his contact attempts. The voicemails grew progressively more frantic and angry. First he was worried and confused, claiming he just wanted to know we were safe. Then he was furious, accusing me of kidnapping Emma and threatening legal action. By the 10th message, he was pleading and promising to change, swearing he would never hurt either of us again. The legal battle began immediately with a meeting with Sarah Martinez, an attorney from the Legal Aid Society who specialized in domestic violence cases. Sarah was a small woman with a fierce determination that reminded me of a lioness protecting her cubs. She explained the process of filing for a restraining order and temporary custody, walking me through paperwork that felt like trying to navigate a foreign language. Every form required me to relive traumatic memories and document abuse that I had spent years trying to minimize and hide. Travis responded by hiring one of the most expensive divorce lawyers in the city, clearly intending to overwhelm me with superior legal firepower. His strategy became clear quickly. He was going to paint me as an unstable, unfit mother who had kidnapped their child during some kind of mental breakdown. He spread lies to our mutual friends about my supposed psychological issues, claiming I had been acting erratically for months and refusing to get help. The character assassination was methodical and brutal. Travis cut off all financial support and froze our joint bank accounts, leaving me completely dependent on the shelter and legal aid services. He hired a private investigator to follow me, documenting everywhere I went and everyone I spoke with, trying to build a case that I was unfit to care for Emma. When that wasn't enough, he sent flowers and heartfelt apology letters to the shelter, claiming he had realized his mistakes and was getting anger management counseling. The temporary custody hearing was my first real taste of how difficult this legal process would be. Travis appeared calm and reasonable, wearing his best suit and speaking in the measured tones he used with his financial planning clients. His lawyer portrayed him as a concerned father fighting an unstable ex-wife who had disappeared with their child in the middle of the night without warning. When I took the stand to describe the abuse, my voice shook, and I stumbled over details, making me sound exactly like the unreliable witness they wanted the judge to see. Despite my poor performance, the judge granted me temporary custody with supervised visits for Travis. It was a small victory, but Travis's reaction made it clear that he considered this a minor setback, rather than a final decision. He violated the restraining order twice in the first week, showing up at the shelter entrance and claiming he just wanted to talk. Each violation resulted in police reports, but no real consequences, which only emboldened his behavior. My support system began to emerge during this dark period. Rosa, the shelter advocate who had helped me that first night, became my guide and trusted ally, helping me navigate social services and legal requirements. Other women at the shelter shared resources and coping strategies, creating an informal network of survivors who understood exactly what I was going through. My sister Kate flew in from Oregon to provide emotional support and help care for Emma during the most intense legal proceedings. Emma thrived in the shelter's peaceful environment despite the upheaval in her routine. She made friends with other children, played with toys that weren't criticized or controlled, and began showing the joy and confidence that had been suppressed at home. Watching her laugh freely and explore without fear reminded me daily why I had made the right choice, even when the legal battle felt hopeless and overwhelming. Travis escalated his harassment campaign as he realized the courts weren't going to simply hand Emma back to him. The threatening voicemails became more specific and menacing. "You'll never keep Emma from me," he would hiss into my voicemail. "I know where you work now, where you take her to daycare. You can't hide forever." He attempted to get me fired from the part-time job I had found at a daycare center by calling my supervisor and claiming I was mentally unstable and potentially dangerous around children. Through therapy sessions at the shelter, I began processing years of trauma and slowly building back my confidence and sense of self-worth. I learned self-defense techniques through a program designed for domestic violence survivors, practicing how to break free from holds and defend myself if necessary. Most importantly, I started documenting everything, keeping detailed records of every violation of the restraining order, every threatening message, every attempt at manipulation or intimidation. Sarah assured me that this evidence would be crucial when we finally got to a full custody hearing. Travis's desperation became dangerous as he realized the legal system wasn't going to automatically side with him as he had expected. 6 months after I left, he filed a false police report, claiming that I had kidnapped Emma and stolen property from our house during my escape. Even though the police quickly determined the report was false, it created a legal complication that required additional court appearances and documentation to resolve. His next tactic was staging a break-in at our old house, claiming that I had returned to steal belongings and personal items. He presented this as evidence of my criminal behavior and unstable mental state, arguing that someone who would break into their former home couldn't be trusted with child custody. The investigation revealed inconsistencies in his story, but the incident added more stress and legal complications to an already overwhelming process. The most frightening escalation came when Travis threatened to take Emma to another state during his next supervised visit. He had been complaining to anyone who would listen that the supervised visits were humiliating and unnecessary, arguing that he was a loving father being persecuted by a vindictive ex-wife. During one visit, he mentioned to Emma that Daddy might take her on a special trip to see new places, language that terrified me because I knew he was testing the waters for parental abduction. The court ordered psychological evaluations for both of us to help determine the best custody arrangement for Emma. This meant weeks of interviews with Dr. Williams, a court-appointed psychologist, who would observe Emma playing with each of us separately and assess our home environments. My anxiety peaked during this process because I knew that Travis was charming and manipulative with professionals, while my trauma responses often made me appear nervous and unstable. During one of the evaluation sessions, Travis's carefully maintained mask finally slipped in a way that couldn't be ignored or explained away. Emma was playing with blocks when she instinctively moved closer to me instead of him. Travis reached for her, roughly grabbing her small arm harder than necessary to pull her toward him. The bruises on Emma's arm were visible for days, and Dr. Williams witnessed the entire incident firsthand. Emma's reaction to that grab was telling and heartbreaking. She began crying and trying to get away from Travis, something she had never done so dramatically during previous supervised visits. Dr. Williams noted in her report that Emma showed clear signs of fear and anxiety around her father behavior that was not typical of normal parent-child relationships. Emma started having nightmares about Daddy again, something that had stopped during our months at the shelter. The breaking point incident happened outside the courthouse after one of our hearings. Travis cornered me in the parking lot while Emma was with Kate, screaming threats and accusations that attracted the attention of security guards. He grabbed my arm hard enough to leave clear fingerprint bruises, all while security cameras recorded every moment of his assault. The irony wasn't lost on me that his need to control and intimidate me had finally provided the undeniable evidence Sarah had been hoping for. Criminal charges were filed against Travis based on the video evidence of his assault, adding a whole new legal dimension to our custody case. His expensive lawyer immediately went into damage control mode, claiming that the stress of divorce proceedings had caused temporary poor judgment and that Travis was seeking anger management counseling. But the pattern of escalating behavior was too clear to dismiss, especially combined with Dr. Williams's observations and Emma's documented fear responses. When Emma's court-appointed child advocate interviewed her using age-appropriate techniques, the results were damning for Travis's custody hopes. Emma consistently expressed fear about Daddy's loud voice and described feeling safer with Mommy. She drew pictures of our family that showed Daddy as a big, angry figure, separate from her and me holding hands together. The child advocate's report recommended that Emma's emotional well-being required protection from her father's unstable and frightening behavior. Community support began building around our case as word spread through local domestic violence advocacy networks. Strangers sent letters of encouragement and small donations to help with legal costs. Emma's daycare teachers provided character witness statements about what a loving, protective mother I was and how much Emma had flourished since we left the shelter environment. Even some of Travis's former friends came forward with concerns about behavior they had witnessed during social gatherings, behavior they had dismissed at the time, but now recognized as troubling. The final custody hearing took place on a cold February morning, almost 8 months after Emma and I had fled, with nothing but our diaper bag and hope for a better future. Judge Patricia Coleman had reviewed all the evidence, psychological evaluations, police reports, and witness statements that had accumulated during our legal battle. Sarah felt confident, but I was terrified that somehow Travis's charm and expensive legal representation would still win the day. Travis's lawyer made one last desperate attempt to portray him as a loving father being persecuted by a vindictive ex-wife, but the evidence was too overwhelming to ignore. The video of his assault in the courthouse parking lot, Dr. Williams' professional observations of his aggressive behavior toward Emma, and the pattern of violations and harassment documented over months created a clear picture of a dangerous and unstable man who prioritized control over his daughter's well-being. Judge Coleman awarded me full custody of Emma with no visitation rights for Travis until he completed extensive anger management counseling and psychological evaluation. The restraining order was made permanent and extended to protect Emma specifically, meaning Travis couldn't contact either of us directly or indirectly for any reason. Financial support was ordered despite Travis's attempts to hide assets by transferring money to relatives and claiming reduced income. Travis's reaction to losing custody was exactly what I expected. He immediately filed an appeal and hired yet another lawyer, spending what must have been tens of thousands of dollars trying to overturn the decision. He created fake social media accounts to try to contact me and send gifts to Emma through mutual acquaintances who didn't know about the restraining order. His inability to accept defeat only reinforced how right the judge's decision had been. The transition to complete freedom was both exhilarating and terrifying. With help from the shelter's transitional housing program, Emma and I moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a different school district, far enough from our old neighborhood to feel safe but close enough to my new job. I had been hired as a second-grade teacher at an elementary school where the principal specifically valued my experience with children from difficult home situations. Emma enrolled in a high-quality preschool program where she thrived socially and academically. Watching her confidence bloom in an environment free from fear and tension was the greatest gift of our newfound freedom. She made friends easily, participated eagerly in activities, and began displaying the natural joy and curiosity that had been suppressed during her early years. She stopped flinching at sudden movements and loud noises, gradually forgetting the hypervigilance that trauma had taught her. My personal growth journey continued through ongoing therapy and a support group for single mothers who had left abusive relationships. These women became my chosen family, celebrating every milestone and providing encouragement during difficult moments. I learned financial independence skills through a nonprofit program, eventually opening my own savings account for the first time in years and establishing credit in my name only. The volunteer work I began at the domestic violence shelter became a source of healing and purpose. Helping other women navigate the same terrifying process I had survived gave meaning to my trauma and hope for breaking the cycle of abuse. Emma sometimes came with me to help organize donations. Unconsciously, learning that helping others was how we processed our own pain and contributed to positive change. Slowly, carefully, I began dating again, armed with new knowledge about healthy relationship boundaries and red flags to avoid. The contrast between respectful, kind treatment and the controlling behavior I had endured became starkly apparent. Emma watched me interact with trustworthy people who valued my opinions and respected my decisions, learning what healthy relationships looked like from a mother who finally understood her own worth. 2 years have passed since that midnight escape with a diaper bag and a heart full of broken dreams. I'm sitting in that same spot in our apartment, but everything has changed. Emma is now 4 years old, secure and joyful, sleeping peacefully in her own decorated bedroom, filled with artwork she created and photos of our adventures together. I'm teaching second grade again, financially independent, and slowly rebuilding relationships with friends and family I had lost during my marriage. Travis's attempts to contact us completely ceased after he violated his probation on the assault charges and spent 30 days in jail. His appeals were denied, his legal options exhausted, and apparently even his persistence finally ran out. The silence has been the most precious gift, allowing Emma and me to heal without constantly looking over our shoulders or jumping at every unexpected phone call. My transformation from victim to survivor to someone who thrives has been the most difficult and rewarding journey of my life. I learned that love doesn't hurt, that caring partners don't isolate you from support systems, and that control disguised as protection is still abuse. The strength I needed to protect Emma was always inside me, just buried under years of manipulation and self-doubt that made me forget who I really was. Leaving that marriage wasn't selfish, it was the greatest gift I could give my daughter. Emma is growing up knowing that she deserves respect, that her voice matters, and that love means freedom to be yourself, rather than walking on eggshells to avoid someone else's anger. She's learning independence, confidence, and joy from a mother who finally understands her own worth and refuses to settle for anything less than genuine happiness. The lessons I've learned could fill books, but the most important ones are simple. Trust your intuition because red flags are warnings, not challenges to overcome. Children absorb everything, so protecting them means protecting yourself from toxic environments. Support systems are essential because isolation enables abuse to continue and escalate. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's taking action to protect what you love, despite being terrified of the consequences. To any woman watching this who feels trapped or questions whether she deserves better, please hear me when I say that you do deserve peace, respect, and authentic love. Your children deserve to witness healthy relationships and emotional safety. Help is available through domestic violence, hotlines, shelters, and legal aid services. Even when it feels like you're completely alone, freedom is possible even when escape seems impossible. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from everything familiar to protect everything precious. Peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of safety and the knowledge that you don't have to earn love through perfect behavior or silent endurance. Happiness isn't perfect circumstances. It's the ability to live authentically without fear of punishment for being yourself. Strength isn't never falling down, it's getting back up every time and helping others do the same. True love isn't possession or control, it's freedom, respect, and the space to grow into who you're meant to become. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from everything you know to protect everything you love. That diaper bag and broken heart led Emma and me to healing hope and a life filled with genuine peace. If my story gives even one woman the courage to choose freedom over fear, then every difficult step of this journey has been worth the pain and uncertainty we endured to get here. Have you or someone you know ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your family? What gave you the strength to take that first step toward freedom? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help it reach other women who need encouragement. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories of courage and healing, and share this video with anyone who might benefit from knowing they're not alone in their struggles. Thank you for listening to my story and for supporting mothers everywhere who are fighting for better lives for their children. Remember that you are stronger than you know, braver than you feel, and more loved than you realize. Until next time, choose peace, choose healing, and choose yourself.